World. Hello, welcome to Agile World. Hello, Sabrina. What's happened to your computer? Why am I seeing feathers?
I'm tethering off of my mobile phone because my network's that bad, so I'm on my iPad. So there's no filter on. You actually get to see who I really look like.
Well, you've got makeup on, haven't you? So
Yes.
I'm going to get letters because of that. Would you like to name and shame your network provider?
BT.
Okay.
I did it. I'm sorry. I did it.
No, it's all welcome. So it's always good to know that the same extraordinary experiences that you're having, I also have, because they're my supplier too. And we've got a guest tonight or today, Andrew. Please. Actually, I don't really know Andrew, so I can't really introduce Andrew, so I'm going to defer.
I was just walking by. It's fine.
It's just some random walk-in. Okay.
So I know Andrew. I used to work with Andrew. Last time I worked with you was back in December, so it's quite recently. And I'll let you introduce yourself, Andrew.
So I'm Andrew Palmer, chartered IT professional, working in IT and specifically IT testing for 16 years now. Agile PM, APMG qualified, been working in Agile about 10 years. Yep, and now at Rock, doing specialist testing services.
Cool.
Thank you very much. So the reason why we brought you on here is because we want to know about your Agile journey. So would you like to go through it? Let us know, when did it actually start? When did you find out about the wonderful world of Agile? Or, had a good or bad experience?
It wasn't a bad experience at the start. I didn't even know it was Agile at the start. So back at university, so this is pre-millennium, we had a methodologies course with a lecturer who spent 6 weeks telling us all about a project he did for an airport expansion IT system. And he kept referring to someone called RAD. And 6 weeks later, I still didn't know what RAD was. But I'd read an entire book on methodologies. Then 10 years later or so, I found out what he was talking about was something called Agile. I went, oh, that's what he meant. Why didn't he say that at the time? That'd have been much more useful. So as I moved into IT consultancy, I picked up a book called Lean Agile. It was in the office library. Read it cover to cover, and it changed my life, because to that point everything had been waterfall. It was like, especially from a testing and quality assurance point of view, which is my specialism, it was, here are your requirements, I will throw them over the wall and never speak to me again. World is where I came from. It was like, okay, we'll test it, and then you'll put it live anyway. Fine, fair enough. So I read this book called Lean Agile, and it was like, oh, this is interesting. I get where Agile is now. And then a recruiter said to me, put Agile on your CV then. And I went, why? It'll add 10K. And I did. I was like, suddenly my CV became the most popular thing on the recruiter's desk. It was like, people were asking, if you know someone who's got Agile, Andrew knows Agile. Oh yeah, can we speak to him? I was like, yeah, cool. So that meant, oh, Agile's actually worth something. Oh, I'll keep that on there. And yeah, that took me through, well, every job since, to be honest. It took me into the NHS, where we started setting up NHS UK. It took me to multiple public sector, and that's where I picked up that Agile PM was the way to go. So for those who don't know what Agile PM is, when I first studied it, it was like the new Prince 2. It's DSDM, right? And so I looked into it, and if you look at the history of Prince 2, it's picked up by the stationery office, and the stationery office said to everyone in government, this is how you're going to do your projects going forward. And they went, yes, sir. So then, say about 10 years ago or so, GDS, as it became, under Mike, picked up DSDM and called it Agile PM and said, this is how we do Agile. And so the NHS, as I was at the time, that is now the standard. Now, I've worked with a lot more customers since then, a lot more clients since then, a lot of businesses, private and public sector businesses. And yeah, they don't all follow it, because I think of 100 clients I work with, I've seen 100 different hybrid models. what probably makes the most common, and I've been seeing this from both sides, both from a consultancy side and from an in-house side, is that they always start from the development and test teams. I've never seen a business sponsor, a product owner go, do you know what, this is how I want to deliver my product. It's come from developers, testers going, this is how I want to work.
And
this is how I want to work.
Why do you think that it comes from that area?
I think it's awareness. I think it's the noise around Agile. And, you know, yes, I mean, I signed up to the Agile Manifesto years ago. But I had problems with the website. For some reason, the Agile Manifesto website didn't like me. But I signed up many years ago. And I was aware of it. But the people beyond technology departments, IT departments, don't know about it. Whereas for people in development and test and BA to an extent, know about it, and they think it's the way to go, and maybe they saw 10 grand adding to their CV as well, but they picked it up as the way to go, because it's fast fix, it's fast feedback, it responds to that. I know we wrote this in the requirements, but actually we went this. It works for that. It's the show and tells. It's that constant communication that you don't get when a spec is thrown over the wall. And it's a nicer way to work. And it is permeating up, but it's permeating up out through IT departments, which in non-digital native businesses is still that team in the basement, or that team on the other floor, or that team in the other building. Now, especially in retail, digital is moving fast, because the boohoos of this world, the ASOSs, are taking over. The more mature retailers are having to respond and going, oh, it's not just about having a website, it's about how you get that website and how you put those products out there, and how your logistics processes feed the front end, which used to be bricks and mortar, used to be a store. You know, when we all get back out to the high street again and see that, you know, there aren't as many shops as there were because everything's digital now, it's going to be a real difference. But that digital is coming from an agile delivery point of view.
Karl's knows a lot about the fashion industry and the online fashion industry. You've done a couple of talks on it. Not that he looks it.
I often remember being told that I don't have to buy the products and wear the products to understand the industry. I mean, actually, those areas of industry are really fascinating because they are massive behind the scenes. Everyone just looks at the stores, and when you actually deal with the wholesale end and the buyer's side, it's extraordinarily complex. And actually, the buyers don't buy anything. Which is also fascinating because it's all about hierarchies. So yes, I do know a bit about it. Thank you, Sabrina. As it doesn't follow into what Andrew's saying, but you know, I think that you're right to say that things are moving beyond simply having a presence. In fact, I just responded to something today online where someone has said, you know, COVID's going to cause everyone to jump into digital, and I'm sitting there thinking probably not, because people still think that digital is a channel instead of, I think the way I described it in that response was that they need to understand themselves to be a digital business that has products and services, but they still haven't made that leap. They still think of themselves as an offline business that uses digital as a channel.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there's a lot of hyperbole really about data analytics, certainly big data, artificial intelligence, and it's not become real yet. But I was working with a logistics company last year that had realized the difference. And actually, they're not a logistics company, they're a data company. Because they have transport infrastructure, and that's great because they can ship product from place A to place B. But what they're generating 10 times as much of is information about what needs to be where, and they can then, now they're realizing that they can sell that data for much more than they can sell a truck or a pallet or whatever logistics or warehouse. And it's like, yeah, digital's not just about shops. Absolutely.
Well, so I think you're hitting off on the big data thing, and I remember people all moaning about big data 2 or 3 years ago, and I did my first big data project in 2007, and the company that made all the money didn't own any of the data. What they did was they made commercial agreements with major companies who had not made any money out of their data and didn't know how to, and combined 144 databases together that essentially gave them a full mapping of every customer desire and interaction in the UK. And people are like going, can you do that? Going, yeah. And then from that, my job was actually to turn that into products. I created 10 products that they could then reuse the data sets for. And I think that's just the bit is people think that technology purely serves an existing purpose and thought, and actually technology has its own life cycle and actually can create new things. And that's what we're expecting from 5G. That's what we're expecting from AI. AI is an oxymoron at the moment because it doesn't exist. So there's a couple of actual intelligent systems. The rest of them are just automation and pattern analysis.
Yeah, machine learning, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think there's also sort of a naivety to where technology is, because things are in development, things are in the universities, they're in MIT, they're in people's bedrooms and garages in the development phase. But I mean, what you mentioned there about big data, I mean, I was working with some rather large brands 12 years ago that were doing Facebook data analytics, building applications that were harvested. I mean, wasn't Cambridge Analytica, but it was along those lines, and that was 6-7 years before Cambridge Analytica came out. The people understood that, you know what, we've got, people, no one who pays to use Facebook, but they harvesting the ads, harvesting the connections, harvesting the buying patterns, the likes. That's the days of Farmville, and it's like that information is powerful from a marketing point of view. That information is powerful from a decision point of view.
Social media, crazy.
Yeah, social media.
The technologies and everything, and even the algorithms and everything that you need to use on social media. It's all about the more likes you get, the more money that you can actually have. This is why you've got a lot of the younger generation now making careers being, I hate to say it, influencer.
Oi, just because I do that for fun.
Yeah.
So at the moment, you're head of the testing department, correct me?
Head of delivery. We're a pure play testing organization, so we only have testers. We don't do project managers. We don't do BAs. We specialize in independent testing services, and that's really important in testing in Agile, actually, because in the last sort of 4 or 5 years, a lot of clients have historically gone for the SIs, the big providers, the one-stop shops who'll give them BAs, testers, developers, i.e. multi-skilled cross-functional teams. And they're struggling because they're not being these contracts, these big contracts that are being signed by retailers, by logistics firms, aren't signed by IT firms. They don't know what a good deal is out of a large-scale IT provider. And they're learning the lessons from this. They've had 3 or 4 years of a contract, and they've not got the outcomes. They've not even got the MVP, let alone have they gone waterfall and delivered an end project. They're not even getting an MVP, and they're going, well, this isn't working. We're not getting the fast feedback, the accelerated time to market that you promised. And so they're coming to us as people who are working in the high complexity, high touch systems that we can go and say, can you come and help us here? Because these guys aren't specialist enough in their each individual bit that drives what we need to get out of it. And so we'll bring in testing expertise, quality assurance expertise to provide oversight or at least independence in some way, that we can go through and say, okay, well, this is what your quality roadmap needs to be. This is where your automation needs to be. And especially as we move into DevOps and continuous integration, automation is absolutely key. So the idea is how you can do your test-driven development, how you can do your automation, how you can fill that through.
So can I ask you, how are you agile? Because at the moment you're talking around like your components of what your business offers. So how are you agile, and one of the problems with agile and dealing with vendors is getting that cadence sorted out. How do you work with your clients to ensure that there's a common cadence?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the default of Jira and user stories and test report apps, that's kind of the default. But the way I answer that is we play nicely with others, right? So, what you don't.
You should do a YouTube advert. We play nicely with others.
Yeah, but it's important. It's important, right? So we're not going to, because we're a pure play testing company, right? We're not going to suddenly say, here's an extra 100 developers. That's not what we do, right? So we're not a threat to an incumbent who's doing a delivery. And we bring in the right cadence, we bring in the right structure, the ceremonies, the appropriate testing.
How do you work with an existing company that has a cadence? Because this. So from the client side, and I often work client side bringing in vendors, and I get told what their cadence is, and I'm going, well, I don't care. We have this cadence.
Absolutely, and that extends to tools, right?
Yeah,
we're customer driven. Okay, yes, we've got partnerships with some major vendors out there of testing solutions, but we're customer driven. We're not going to come down and say, here, use this. This is all you're going to use because that's what we think works best. So no, and that's where the agility really comes in. It's listening to the customers. It's have that flexibility to say, all right, you've already got a test strategy template. Let's look at it. Can we use it? You may want to include this in your results, or you may want to think about this in terms of your governance, but let's work in terms of what works for you, because that's fundamentally, that's listening. That's being a partnership. You shouldn't be throwing in there, do you know what? Here's the template we've used with 16 other companies in your sector. It must work for you. That's going to fail. You're going to be upset with that.
You've hit the nail on the head there, where you've just turned around and say, we listen to you as a customer. 100%.
Because it works. And again, in terms of the traditional sense of the agile there, it's the ability to pivot, the ability to find out what the first milestone is and say, okay, look, what's working, what wants to continue. We're not going to sign you up for a 5-10 year contract with no breakpoints. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to say, okay, well, what's the first challenge? Let's deliver that. What's the longer term challenge? Okay, we need a roadmap, right? Let's build that out. We work in that flexible way.
So when are you brought in? Because one of the problems, sorry, Sabrina, do you want to?
I was just going to say, the one thing I was just going to add on to that is it's hard these days because there's so many different flavors and versions of agility. And when you're working with multiple different customers, you've almost got to have that ability to mold with them on what version and flavor of agility they want, or they're working with, or how they're actually working. So that was the bit I was going to add. You go for it, Karl.
No, sorry. I was just kind of interested in when you brought in, because I work through full life cycle within programs, and I'm usually sitting in the program level. And one of the problems I see with testing is it's often an afterthought. And good test-driven development, the actual final test people set the parameters for the test-driven development. It's not something they make up. So you would need to be brought in during the planning phases of a new program. How often is that happening for you? And what do you do when you're not?
Yeah, the short answer is we're brought in too late.
Okay.
Chances are, as I described earlier, we're put in when something's not going right, and we've got tactics that we use to accelerate and fix that, and then work longer term. But one of the campaigns that we're running as a company, one of the education campaigns we're running at the company, is the importance of quality engineering. And I'm a big advocate of the test coach role. So we're familiar now with agile coaches, like someone who sits with the team and talks about this is how you can improve your ceremonies, etc.
Excuse me, familiar? You worked with one for how long? You should know. Add the butt in there. Nudge, nudge.
You've got her phone number, but every time she speaks, all you can hear is music.
Yeah. I've worked with a few in my time.
I'm your favourite, though.
Yes, of course.
Right. Okay. Well, you're going to have to cut that bit because no favoritism is allowed on this show.
Sorry, Joe, for listening. No, it's because there's a couple of areas where it would really help if testing was brought in earlier. One is that testing coach role, the idea that someone sits in the team, because the challenge that we're seeing heads of test or heads of delivery, CIOs deal with at the moment is multifunctional or cross-functional teams, multidisciplinary teams. And they're being sold these 10x developers who can do everything. Oh, I can build your integration pipeline. I can write your brilliant code. I can write your automated tests. I can write your requirements for you. Oh yeah, I'll be a product owner as well. Why not? But pay me a lot more money. Yeah. We're seeing a lot of people being pushed, having those people pushed across onto them. And it's kind of like, well, that's great, but that person's not going to have the depth of knowledge unless they're like 108 years old to go and say, okay, this is what good test looks like. This is what a good requirement looks like. This is what good code looks like. So having that coach in there can go for, okay, this is how you can structure your unit tests. This is how you can then add on through enhanced unit tests. This is how you can put in integration tests. This is how you can automate your UAT, et cetera, is really valuable and doesn't exclude that cross-functional multidisciplinary team. But the other way that we encourage people to think about this is, I say, the quality engineering approach, which is design quality in upfront. That doesn't just mean writing a test strategy. It means writing a quality strategy for the product to say, okay, well, how is this product valuable, right? I'm a big fan of the bakery analogy. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this one, but you have a really good bakery, or one of our favorite bakeries or patisseries, right? And in that, you'll have a highly skilled team. You'll have a really great baker. You'll have some good ingredients, you'll have a good physical bakery. So great, you put those things together, and they'll produce a great loaf of bread, won't they? You got a good baker, right? Great. How do you know if that bread tastes any good? You're going to have to taste it. That's the testing, right? Fine, you've got that in there. But hang on, how do you know those things put together? Because where's the value in that? Okay, you've got to go for a great loaf of bread. Where's the value in that loaf of bread? Well, unfortunately, that bakery is only open at night, so you can only buy a fresh loaf of bread at 10 o'clock at night. Well, that's not really good because I want it for breakfast. Because of the cost of the ingredients, that loaf of bread is £14. Oh, okay, well that's all the customers gone, right? So where's the value in that fantastic product you've just built? There isn't any. Sorry, you can only eat it at night when it's fresh. Oh, so quality is about saying, okay, what do I need this to be at the end? How do I need to structure my requirements and prioritize my requirements? How do I need to check that quality throughout the delivery process and say, do you know what? Oh, we're spending a bit too much here on development, or we're spending a bit too much here on testing. Oh, this bit's taking too long. We've got some quality metrics in there that says we want this turned around inside a week, or whatever it happens to be. To make sure those quality processes, those quality checks are in place up front, so the team together can work on it and make sure they're all following the same standards. That's what quality engineering is important. And that's what we're really keen to support people doing as well.
So do you do quality engineering testing at what might be described in many organizations at a platform level or at an executive level? Because one of the issues in scaling Agile is the attempt to bring the business in to the same formal processes and to adopt a common set of language around how work is done. One of those elements is quality. What is the quality of an idea that comes into a POC, that comes into a development process that delivers a product that has an outcome for customers? That whole relationship model. A lot of the time when people say we're interested in quality, what they mean is what the customer's got. Well, actually, if the ideas were rubbish to start with, and we're not, do you get involved in that kind of quality assessment?
Absolutely. And just like the change to move Agile, and you mentioned about it being bottom up before, has to come down. Quality has to come down from the top. And the conversations we're having are with the CIOs, the CMOs, the CBOs, the COOs.
Don't forget the CFOs. They get really upset since they're paying for everything.
CPOs.
I've actually spent most of my Agile career working for CFOs because they're the ones that actually see the benefit more quickly. Anyway, carry on.
They absolutely do. You're absolutely right. And saying, well, let's talk about your process for the delivery. Let's talk about the how, not just the what you're producing here. Because that then bakes it in up front. And we say for a CFO, you can talk about let's not call it the savings, because Agile's not always cheaper. But let's just talk about more about the productivity and the effectiveness of what we're delivering and the return on investment. We're talking about the ease of operations, the ease of support that COOs care about. Why do we test? Nothing else, to reduce support costs, to reduce the negative feedback you're getting in your call center. All those kind of things to make sure that the quality is in there right from the start.
Cool.
Can I just add? Most of my career, I've worked with the CTOs.
Really, that's interesting.
I always get employed by the CTOs. I very rarely, and I always work very closely with the CTOs. So
you know why it is that because I come a lot of this stuff from customer experience and user experience. So it's usually the CEO or the CFO that sees those values as their highest priority, and the CTO is looking for, management of throughput. Whereas, if you can go to a CFO and explain to them that if they can set the value principles at the beginning of whatever work that's happening, they become the metrics that determine success. And I think generally then their writing of the reports is so much easier at group level. But yeah, I normally get hired by CEOs or CFOs.
I normally go in on the engineering, technical delivery side level. That's why I end up with the CTOs. It's good. Actually, there you go. You've got two sides of the peg.
Got two sides. How about you, Andrew? Who normally hires you and brings your company in? And can we have their phone numbers, please?
It is more it's the CEO and the CIO. Most of our conversations are with, especially on the CIO route. It's interesting you mentioned there about the platform level. And where we're going, where DevOps is going. We're hearing a lot of clients implementing DevOps, but at a component level. You'll say, "Oh, so what methodology do you use?" "Oh, we're DevOps now." Great. So what product do you actually support in your DevOps team? "Oh, we don't. It's just an API." Or, "Oh no, it's just a microservice." So you're not actually launching a product then, are you?
So the one that I come across now is people saying we're doing DevOps. I'm going, okay, that's great. So you're doing development? Yes. What operations are you doing? Oh, we don't do operations. Someone else does that. So you're not doing DevOps then?
The whole point of DevOps is development and operations working together.
Yeah.
But the good thing about DevOps is because, and the irony of DevOps is, let's put gates all the way around to make sure the quality check's in place. But the idea is you can have that continuous checking, that continuous automated testing, or that continuous feedback loop. And that's what the real value needs to be. And that extenuates the importance of quality throughout the life cycle. It's very hard to do DevOps without it.
Yeah, and it's very hard to do DevOps without Agile.
Yeah.
It's hard, but not impossible, and people are trying.
Yeah.
And this is where it becomes problematic. I mean, I've recently did a write-up for someone that explained that the biggest value of Agile is risk management. And people are going, well, what do you mean risk management? What we want to do is reduce headcount. I'm going, well, headcount is a byproduct of focusing on how we work and finding out that there is lots of work going on that is not needed. But actually, the real value of Agile is to understand the current status of the work and what is the risks, issues, and impediments. And to know that on a daily basis across an entire enterprise. We're not talking about small development shops here. You can actually, at a European community level, know what the current state of every piece of work is if you set Agile in place. No one's tried it yet, but I mean they're trying in places. But certainly, large banks are now in a position to change direction every 3 months, whereas before they could change direction if there was a buyout. Or every 15 to 20 years. Now they can do it on a 3 months cadence because they now know the current state of all the work, which is fantastic. But I think that's getting that across to people, because everyone's always saying, have you got any case studies? Well, it's very difficult to get published case studies where people reveal their business strategy. But there are lots of businesses who are very, very successful at applying Agile. Because it deals with so many problems that they currently have 50 different ways of dealing with.
Well, that's part of the challenge that Agile's had at a senior acceptance level as well. Because you're right, people are used to saying, "Well, show me the case study, show me where this has been valued." But it's a framework. It's an applied approach. It goes in. It's listening. It's getting that feedback. What we do with your business will be different to what we've done with your competitor. We'll have a similar effect, but it won't be a templated gold standard that we will do exactly the same thing, because you are not your competitor. If you were, it would be a different business.
Exactly. The useful bit is to have the same language. As I know there's a problem between Scrum and Safe, that they use the same words to mean different things. But practitioners generally ignore all of that stuff because we're not actually members of a particular church. We're focused on our clients. So I think that having a common set of language around what we're trying to achieve at least helps people move and understand what's happening.
One of the strangest, you asked earlier, Sabrina, about quirks in my career and challenges I've had around Agile. I once applied for a job for it was just a test manager position, but they specified safe expertise. And I wasn't a safe expert at that point. I'm not a safe experience, but I had on my CV 6 years of Agile work, and I spoke to the guy on the phone, and he said, "You haven't got safe, you can't do Agile." And I went, "Do you know, I don't want to work for you. If you're not willing to listen, I'm not going to work for you."
But that's just naivety, and there's a lot of naivety at the moment. People see these brands, I'm going to say brands, that they're going to assume that if you don't have these particular certifications of brands, that you don't know it. But that's not 100% the case. I'm shocked. I almost want you to name and shame, but please don't.
I actually launched Agile into one of the biggest digital organizations in the UK before I got a certification, because I didn't have a Scrum Master certification when I launched Agile into Northcliffe Digital. And Northcliffe owns a bunch of newspapers and a whole load of other subsidiary companies. And it's massive. And that has a direct impact on the economy of this country. And they gave me the responsibility to launch Agile, and I didn't have any certificates at all. But what I had was 5 years of experience. And I think this is the thing, is certificates are useful as an indicator of a common set of language, the same way as you would when you do a degree or a master's, but they don't declare ability.
Yeah.
So
I once started this is going back a few years now, but I once started a very big argument at a conference by saying that I wouldn't interview anyone who didn't have ICEP qualification in their testing career. And I was being hounded by people who had been in testing 15, 20 years and never done a testing exam in their life. And we go, "Oh no, why wouldn't you speak to me? I've got loads of experience in testing and test management." It's like, because you probably speak a different language to everyone else in my team. You don't have the same basis, the same ground to work from. I'm sure you're very good and you'd find lots of defects, but I don't know how you'd work with my team.
So I'd been coding for must be about 15, 16 years before I went and did a computing course. And I only did that computing course to learn the language. And I did a master's in computer science just so I could get a common set of language, because I tried to talk to people about computing before and they just looked at me like, "What are you on? What are you talking about?" So I think that really is important to get that common communication layer in place.
Cool. Right. I'm just having a look at the time, and I think we're starting to run out of time now. Have you got anything else you want to add? It's been really good. Thank you, Andrew.
It's really good to come on.
I was going to say, we must put a link into your business in the show as well, just so that you've got, so if someone can find you if they have testing needs above and beyond purely software, because I think you've got a good array of competencies there that can help people.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I work for rock.co.uk, ROQ. It actually stands for Return on Quality. Nice. I only found out after I started. Sorry. We're called Rock, so we're a UK-based business. But yeah, I understood the importance of personal branding very early on in my career, probably before I started working. So I'm at Mr. AJ Palmer, MrAJPalmer, on everything. I even got the Clubhouse now, and I've got the Clubhouse. I'm sounding old. I haven't got the TikTok though. I'm not that cool.
You haven't got the TikTok.
Yeah, but
I have TikTok. I don't have Clubhouse. I've got TikTok. I've had TikTok for a few years, but I've also got a Small World, which is I think is
Isn't that a ride at Disneyland?
No, it's a Small World is an entrepreneurs club for people that set up their own businesses, and it's been going for a long time. But I got invited to it by someone I helped set up theirs. And you need to basically have to set up an actual company to be a member. So
very good. Yeah. So to read my blog, to read my post, find me on Twitter at Mr. AJ Palmer. But for all your testing needs, rock.co.uk.
Okay, cool.
we are hopefully going to have you back soon, because we want to do a discussion soon with a few friends that we have around about TDD and BDD. So hopefully we'll be able to get you back on here. So
Okay, go for it.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Karl. Lovely to see you and speak to you as always, my darling.
And so it should be.
Thank you for watching Agile World.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.